you could have a project where it's just me and Ian, or it's just me and Kev and like one other person.
They're not in like some ivory
exactly
tower.
Do you know what I mean? Sat in an office in the corner, not wanting you to come and knock. It's such an open door policy, and like I said, you get to work with them one-on-one and kind of like really learn from the best, and your opinion is valid as well.
So much for having us today.
Thank you.
I'm just going to tell everyone, this is Amy Nightingale, Tapestry Research. You're the research
manager. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for coming in, making the trip in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was actually tricky. For anyone who doesn't know, the office is like down an alley. It looks like, in Harry Potter, that sort of
diagonal alley. Yeah. Did you have to tap a couple of bricks to get in?
So what the hell is going on?
We like to keep people on the toes. You've got to search for this research. You've got to do your research for this research. That's what it is. Yeah.
I love that. What's life like here at Tapestry?
It's good. So these are our kind of like new digs. We literally used to be upstairs and have moved down. Basically, because the company has just like grown so much. Maybe I'll give you a bit of kind of context to how Tapestry came to be. So there's a bit of kind of disagreement between. So we've got two joint MDs about when the company was like actually founded. So it's either 2013 or 2014.
They can't remember.
They can't remember precisely. They remember having conversations about it, and we've basically got a receipt upstairs that's framed where they kind of were like, okay, we're going to do this from their meal. I think, out in Soho, we're like, yeah, we're going to make this company. It's going to be fantastic. The receipt is faded so much you can't even see what they were ordering. So I'm proper nosy. I was like, I wanted to see what they were up to, what they shook hands over. So we've been going for maybe 8-9 years, something like that. And it started small, obviously, just like the two of them, and we've grown to be coming close to 30 now. Wow. So I think what was at the heart of Tapestry when it was founded was both of the MDs that kind of met at Ipsos Mori, so this big global research powerhouse. They also kind of worked at OTX together, which was more kind of like movie screenings, that kind of like content testing thing. And I think maybe just not were frustrated by it, so I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but were like, we could probably create our own agency that's a bit more agile, that's able to kind of be quick on its feet, think on its feet and kind of really react and get things done for the clients. And that's how Tapestry came to be, basically, because they wanted to get stuff done. And I think it's been that way ever since, just kind of like through, sheer hard work, just, dedication to kind of research and stuff like that the company has done so well and is kind of like at the position that it is now, that we've got close to 30 people and
you're winning awards.
And we're winning awards, yeah, we are. We do have our MRG rising star, our very own Lily Spencer, who she won that a couple of years ago for just being absolutely fantastic at data. And I mean, we do pride ourselves on the work that we do, and it's always good to get the recognition from kind of like other people in the industry as well, being like, you know what, you guys are doing a good job. That's what it's nice.
There is, I think you touched on something there is a power in being small, and I wouldn't say that you guys are small now, like 30.
Yeah, I was going to say we're on our way to being
on the way to get in. Yeah. But at least the concept coming from a big place like Ipsos, the concept of if we start something small, we can be more nimble, we can be more flexible,
exactly.
we can be more creative.
Yeah.
That is something I've heard echoed around, lots of different places.
Yeah. I think it's true. I really do think it's true. And I think what being an agency of this size also gives you is the opportunity to kind of work with everybody as well. That, you know, no one team is the same on each project. They're always mixing it up, and you're always getting to kind of, you know, interact and kind of be involved with people that you haven't before, and that's so great. And I think what's also great is the kind of exposure that you get to people like Ian and Kev, who are our joint MDs, who obviously have, I don't think they'd want me saying how many years they've got in the industry. They've got several years in the industry. And, you know, they are absolute geniuses at what they do. They know everything, basically, and to kind of get to work with them one-on-one and learn from them like that. You know, you could have a project where it's just me and Ian, or it's just me and Kev and like one other person.
They're not in like some ivory
exactly
tower.
Do you know what I mean? Sat in an office in the corner, not wanting you to come and knock. It's such an open door policy, and like I said, you get to work with them one-on-one and kind of like really learn from the best. And you know, your opinion is valid as well.
But would you say that's kind of the culture at Tapestry as well?
100%.
The fact that it's smaller, because you can get that sort of scenario of that sort of glass office, don't knock. You could get that in a small company. Yeah,
and I think it trickles down. I think it's set, the tone is set by Kev and Ian and kind of comes down, and they're just very approachable, like great people, great kind of like what you'd want from MDs, in that they're like so knowledgeable, but also so easy to talk to that you're not like, oh, you know, I don't want to annoy them with this question. Like, no question is stupid. And if anything, they want to hear your input. They want to kind of like hear your thoughts. And that's what I think is also so great about Tapestry, is how collaborative we are, that no matter, you know, if you're a director, if you're just starting our research exec, you know, everyone's points are valid. Everyone's got something interesting to say. Everyone's got a different way that they'd approach a research question. And so I think we always invite that. Is like, you know, what are your thoughts? And they absolutely encourage that as well. And, you know, you can get into some like 30-minute teams, like face-to-face meetings, just like, oh no, but what about this? Or have you thought about this? And you kind of find yourself going down and really kind of like getting deep into it. And it's been absolutely fantastic, like for me especially, because I've kind of worked my way down. So I started off at Universal Pictures. So we're talking about big global kind of like media conglomerate, where you just, it's, you know, you're kind of surrounded by people. It's huge. You've got, you know, obviously offices all over the world. I was about to say country, all over the world, and then kind of like have downsized since then. And now I'm here at Tapestry, and I don't think I'd want to kind of go back up again, because your voice is so valued in a place like this that, you know, I don't just feel like a cog in the machine. Yeah.
No, I get you. Yeah. Actually, I want to dive into that. Like, tell me about your journey. How you. I mean, I didn't know that you was at Universal before.
Yeah.
What was before Universal?
So I'll give you the life story. Here we go. It's one for the autobiographers. So Universal was my first job out of university. So when I went to university, I did history, because it's what I was that was my best subject, and I spoke to people and they were like, do what you enjoy. And then I was going to go and do a conversion course to law. That was always what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a solicitor. So I got to university. So I was going to do the 3 years and then do the conversion course, and that was going to be me. And as time went on, I was like, I'm done with education. You know, I've spent enough time kind of like, you know, doing the exams, doing the essays, all that kind of stuff. I'm over it. I was kind of thinking, you know, what are my passions? What do I enjoy? And history, obviously it might be slightly different research to what we do like now, you know, or in psychology and stuff like that, the kind of more sciencey side of it. But in the end, you're still kind of trying to understand people and why they did what they did and how we've kind of ended up where we are now. And I thought I'd combine two of my passions, which was research behind the history and film, because I absolutely love film. I was in my student I volunteered at my student cinema, and I just came across. I was like, first job in I'd love to do film. Like, or just Google first job in film.
In front of the camera or always behind?
I think always behind. I haven't got the voice. I haven't got the voice from the Midlands, so that no one would ever employ me to talk on camera or anything like that. So it was, it was always going to be behind. But I was like, I'd love to get into the industry at least, kind of see what it's about. Just first job in film. Came across Universal Pictures. They were looking for interns for that year, and I went to the open day. It was a research and analysis role. I got it, shockingly, because it was pure numbers. I was basically sat alongside the sales team. My little team was called Research and Analysis, and we basically supported them in kind of just tracking. I was in charge of basically the home entertainment market, so it was DVDs, Blu-rays, may they rest in peace, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's on its way out, I know. But give me a bit of credit, this was a couple of years ago when we were still, you know, selling those numbers. And it was basically helping them kind of like with figures, you know, looking at the market, you know, looking at trends, predicting how we thought our titles were going to do compared to others.
So was it mostly quant?
Yeah, it was mostly quant, yeah, and it was, to be fair, it was a lot of like sales data and all that kind of stuff. And I remember my MD coming to me, and we basically had our title, which was just, you know, some like middle of the road comedy that had some A-list stars in, you know, and then there was a competitor's one that was very similar, both released at the same time, and he was like, why is theirs outselling ours? And all I could do was look at the sales data, look at kind of our position in store, you know, how many facings did we have on the shelf, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of went to him and I was like, you know, this is what I found, like maybe we didn't push hard enough in certain grosses. And it basically wasn't the answer that he wanted, because then it makes it look like we're not doing our job, if you know what I mean. And I was like, I wish I could tell you more beyond that, to be like, oh, you know, people thought X, Y of the film, or, do you know, like it has these perceptions. So I remember being quite frustrated, being like, I just can't quite get to that next level. So I remember talking to people like, I need a bit more. I kind of want to understand why people are buying what they're buying and why they're making these decisions. And that's when I found out about the company that I was at before Tapestry, which was MarketCast, and that was basically...
You were at MarketCast?
Yeah. Oh, so you've heard of them,
yeah. When I used to work at Indiefield, they did quite a few projects for MarketCast, always a film stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I was still like on the film kind of train, but it was now like content testing. So it was like trailers, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, that was a really good change for me, because I really actually kind of did get to kind of drill down into what drives, you know, people's affinity for films and, you know, why they're more drawn to, you know, this trailer over this trailer. And, you know, I really got to start to hear like the respondents' voices. So that was my more kind of like, that was more researchy, I'd say, whereas the first one was a bit more sales. And it was good, so I was there for a couple of years. But yeah, again, I was like, I still feel like there's more I could like tap into here. And, you know, film trailers are quite specific, you know, doing content testing like that. And so I kind of felt like I wanted to diversify, and that's when I came across Tapestry. I
like what you said, tap into.
Yeah, tap into the Tapestry. And so kind of the stuff that we do here is still kind of entertainment, but we're a lot broader than that. It's media, lifestyle, kind of like culture. We don't really have like a set industry. A lot of our clients are kind of like in the entertainment media sphere, so we do a lot with like streaming, you know, SVOD companies. We do a lot with kind of like TV, you know, media conglomerates, but also we'll do charity, like we do charity work. We've worked with a few charities. I wouldn't say anything and everything, but like
it's more varied.
It's a lot more varied, and it's really, really interesting, because you never know what's going to come across your desk next, if you know what I mean. I've worked with so many different clients, and it's so refreshing to kind of have that variety. I'd say that's my journey. It was just always kind of wanting to understand more, and I think it was always that curiosity that kind of like drove me forward. And now I feel like I'm in a really good place where, you know, I kind of get to quench that thirst, so to speak, because whilst we're also, you know, majority we do is quant, we also have like qual partners that we use quite frequently, and, you know, always happy to kind of throw some qual in there to kind of add some flavour to the quant, and, you know, really understand consumers. So it's like a perfect blend, and I feel like I've finally hit the sweet spot, so to speak, and kind of answering those questions.
You touched on something there so it's kind of segued me into something else. I know but I've asked quite a few people, like, what is it that you love about research or working in research? And you said it's like quench that thirst. And what is that thirst? Because you could just say curiosity, but I feel like everyone's a bit curious, right? That's why we watch YouTube videos and stuff like that. You know? But what is it about being a researcher? There's like, you know, for the type of person who would want to do this, what are the traits? What are we talking about?
I think for me, I was thinking about this. I was like I said, it is a curiosity, but I also like to be proven right and proven wrong, if you know what I mean. I feel like everyone's got opinions. I've got opinions. maybe sometimes I can have strong opinions. So when you kind of are approached by a client and you've kind of got this research project this research question put in front of you, you're just like, oh, I think I know how this is going to go. I can see, let's say we're doing a segmentation of like a population. You're just like, I think I'm going to see X kind of person, I'm going to see this kind of person. Like I think I've got it figured out how it's going to go. And then you kind of see the data and you're just like, it makes you just completely reevaluate. And you're just like, I had not even considered that, there was this kind of like thought process or this kind of outlook on life, and it really just makes you kind of reevaluate and kind of reflect on your own kind of opinions, outlooks on life and
biases.
Stuff like that. Yeah, exactly, and biases as well. So I think for me, it's always constantly being like learning, kind of improving kind of my knowledge and the way I look on the world and stuff like that, and just constantly expanding that knowledge as well. I'd say that's what drives me. I do think there is definitely a curiosity, a nosiness in for research as well, because that's what I also love is we're working with clients, and it's on a lot of the stuff that we do is usually kind of like, let's say for products like pre-release, ideas, concepts, things like that they obviously haven't put out to the public yet, and so you kind of get a look behind the curtain of like what's going on in these big companies, these big industries. What are the trends? How's like the streaming world's going to kind of be progressing forward? How are they kind of reacting to what's happening out there in the world? And you kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what people are thinking, and what might be next as well. So for me, that's like that nosiness of like, oh, what's everyone saying? What we all up to?
It's like talking points, right?
Yeah.
It makes you more of a interesting person maybe when you meet someone, you're talking to them and they're like, hey, did you know da 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 da?
Yeah, and
what do you think about da 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 da?
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, this person's like got something.
And it's because we like the kind of companies that we're like involved in and the research that we do, it's so varied that I feel like I've got something to say about. I feel like I've got something to say about everything now. I've maybe so opinionated, or just like, oh yeah, no, we've done some research about that, or like, yeah, no, I think I came across that actually in a study. You should have seen how like Mexico responded to that. It was actually quite interesting and stuff like that. So yeah,
it's funny though, because as cool as we know it is, it still has this perception on the outside of like, all we do is look at spreadsheets, all we do is hold clipboards and stand on corners, and it's like, for me personally, the big one for me is like social issues. Research is the driver for change. Because you can't sit there and lobby for anything without facts and statistics and all that. So research is what's driving. It's actually the coolest job in the world if you think about it, because
100%.
We create all this change, whether it's on a sort of big social level. We're talking, is Coca-Cola going to put a new flick on the end of their logo? It's still changing the world, But you ask, your average teenager or anyone really, oh, what do you think about research? And the first instinct is probably going to be important, but probably a bit boring. Why is that?
I don't know whether it's because it's, I don't know, just like tied to numbers, or X% said this, or I think stats can, stats like that can be really, really dry. It's kind of what you do with those stats, which I think also kind of ties into what I also love about research, is kind of like story building. Is like building a story, building a narrative. Like, so what? You look at a percentage, like X% said this. So what am I going to do with that, and how can I take that percentage and make it actionable, or kind of like give recommendations off the back of it, and what does that mean, kind of like
what does it really mean?
What does it really mean? So kind of like engaging beyond that. But I do think there is probably a perception that it is a bit dry, because you see kind of like some of these reports that are released by the government or whatever, and it's just like X said this, X said, and it's not engaging. That's not how we kind of like read content. That's not how we want to. Like if you look at newspapers and all that kind of stuff nowadays, and how YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff, it's people not want to be entertained, but do you know what I mean? You've got to hold people's attention. You're fighting for people's attention all the time. So you've got to do a bit more than just giving them stats and then walking away. You've actually got to kind of give them the so what of it all, and give them a reason to want to engage with what you're saying, and kind of...
No, but beyond that, I mean, like someone's, like someone's in school. They're deciding what they're going to do. Being a lawyer or being a advertising or marketing, they have this sort of like cool sort of allure. I don't know what it is, I want the same for what we do. It should be up there.
It definitely should.
And I mean, as an industry, maybe, because there's a lot. I do a lot of work in like the diversity space. I'm trying to bring more people from different sort of backgrounds into the industry, and I think that's a factor as well.
100%.
But what else? I mean, how do you think the industry is doing in terms of like, pushing these sort of issues of making the industry a more inclusive space?
Yeah, maybe I can't speak on behalf of the industry, but I know there's stuff close to home that like Tapestry are doing, and I'm so glad you kind of brought that up, because it is definitely something that we've recognised, that the kind of respondents that we're talking to, and also the people that we employ as well. We're making kind of concerted efforts on both fronts to kind of improve representation and inclusion, diversity in that respect. So just thinking about like the surveys that we're putting out, we realise, that for the most part, they're not actually, some of them aren't accessible to people, let's say, who have issues with their sight, or, have to use screen readers, things like that, colour blindness, things, things that we hadn't kind of considered. And off the back of kind of a project that we've done with a charity who kind of deal with that, we've realised, we need to relook at how we're doing our methodologies and how we're kind of like talking to people, and are we overlooking certain parts of the population who actually, we talk about nat rep samples, but is it truly nationally representative? No, it's not. And so we need to make a concerted effort to make sure that we are talking to everybody in the population, and that we're making it accessible for them. So like I said, we're doing stuff with our surveys that means that anybody can take it, whether they're able-sighted or not. Also,
how does that, just to jump in on that, what are you doing? So let's say someone is blind. How are they doing the surveys over the phone?
So they basically have screen readers. I mean, so we set up basically a task force, a diversity and inclusion task force, whose job it is to kind of basically lead the charge on how we're going to like improve our practices. And they've done like a couple of presentations to us, and like I said, we're rolling this stuff out. As I understand it, with these screen readers, they kind of read what they read, they dictate to the person what is being shown on the screen. And some of our question types, basically just, let's say a wheel, I don't know whether people know that, but you kind of, what those are, but you click an answer and it kind of goes to the next kind of option, then you click another answer and it kind of goes like that. Basically that is not going to, no, a screen reader doesn't know how to kind of work around that. So it's kind of changing the format of questions to maybe be a table instead, or stuff like that. And like the colour of a background as well. If people are colourblind, it makes it very hard, with certain colours to see what the text actually is. And so obviously they're just not going to answer it if they can't read it and stuff like that. So those are things that they've kind of flagged to us and that we're working on. But like I said, it's things that you just hadn't even considered. But it's little changes, do you know what I mean? It's no skin off our nose. We're still kind of getting the data and the answers that we want and that we need just by making small changes. And it's, it's for the better, 100%.
Yeah. And you can't always get it right, but you're trying. And that's what it is, I think, as a wider industry. We're going to make some mistakes. I had someone suggest to me, I've got the answer. We're not going to ask ethnicity. We're going to do a colour chart, like a Dulux palette. They say pick it, and it's like, hang on a minute. I'm the same colour as an Indian, an Arab, that's not going to work. Everyone's got something they want to try. And I think, it's quite toxic, because if anyone tries something and it fails, and then everyone's on, oh my god, if it fails, okay, we try something else.
We take from that, don't we, move forward. And I think that's what it is. We've got to have this collaboration across the industry of like having these conversations about, okay, what have you tried, what are you doing, okay, how can we all kind of like do better. And I think there have been there have been murmurings about that, kind of when you go to industry body kind of like meetings and stuff like that, and how we can all do better. I know there's like a push industry-wide, basically, because I think traditionally the people that have gone into research are people that have gone to university and, are kind of from a certain kind of social grade, kind of middle class, kind of through that, I hold my hand, that's kind of how I kind of got into the industry. But that's not the case. I massively see kind of like a swing moving away from university. You don't have to have gone to university to kind of do research stuff like this. all we want is people that are inquisitive, you know, that want to learn, are enthusiastic, kind of like just want to get involved. That's, you know, as a base, that's all we care about. And it doesn't matter whether you kind of like, did your GCSEs, A-levels, no, as long as you've got that passion. So yeah, I think we're making a concerted effort that in that respect as well, to kind of take people from educational backgrounds that are different to what we've traditionally had as well, which I think is really exciting, because it's just another point of view and another way to approach questions. Like I said, I think at the start, you know, everyone has their own viewpoint about how you should kind of like approach things, and to have that kind of like diversity is so refreshing, is so exciting, that you just, you know, you can just spark off people like that, can't you? And then who knows where you're going to end.
I kind of feel like, because you've touched on something there with the socio-economic difference, and that is one, I think it's the last on the list of all of the diversity things that people really want to talk about, and it's probably the most difficult to unpack as well, so I understand why. But if you think about it, like, just anecdotally, I can use myself as an example. I never finished my GCSEs. I never knew really what I was going to do in life. I was like bouncing around like a mosquito, you know, just bouncing around here and there. But because of that, I feel like I've lived 10 lives, you know. So I feel like I understand people because I've been the barman, I've been the charity street fundraiser, I've been the this, I've been the that. I've done so many different jobs, and I think that people who, as you say, come in through the sort of traditional, went to uni, middle class, straight into research. You've only lived that one life. So it's going to be more difficult, I think, to really empathise or to understand common people. And that's what we're trying to do most of the time with research, right? We're trying to understand common people. It makes sense to get some common people in there.
It definitely would. It definitely would. And like, it goes back to this whole like nat rep thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to, if we want it to be truly nationally representative, we need to have that whole kind of like spectrum, like you said, of socioeconomic, ethnicity, kind of gender, all of that. You need everything basically, and I'm really excited about what's on the horizon basically, and you know how we can.
I think we're in for a treat in the future. I think there's a lot going on. I still think that even once we got all this stuff, diversity stuff, there is an element of cool that's still missing. I don't know how we're going to drop that in there, but we'll get there, I think.
I suppose, I know what you mean. I think when I talk to people and they're like, oh, what do you do, market research? I think you can kind of see, people are like, oh, okay. And it's like, I think there's this perception of, like you said, it's just these basic like questionnaires, like, what's your gender, you know, ticking boxes and stuff like that. And I do genuinely think it's so much more than that. Maybe it's I think it's just cool to me because, like I said, it kind of makes me question my outlook on life and like what I think. It also means that I can, construct a really nice narrative of like a story of like, kind of how do we get from this percentage to this percentage? Oh, what does that mean for, the client? What does it mean for the brand? Here's some recommendations kind of thing.
It's like problem solving.
Yeah, it is 100% problem solving. Like that's always what the research questions are. What's behind a research brief, isn't it? Is like we want to find this out, maybe because we're losing subscribers, or we're like we're not kind of reaching the people that we want to reach, or something like that. There's always a problem behind it, and it's how are you going to solve that, and like working through that to kind of like the end product of being like, look, here we are, we've answered it for you, and it's like. It's so great to kind of see that change kind of enacted as well. Maybe, that's another one. That the stuff you do, like you said, research is what makes change happen, whether it is kind of like on a national scale, in terms of kind of like living standards, all that kind of thing, or if it is, the Coke changing like the brand of it, you kind of see your research kind of enacted, and that's very, very satisfying to be like, I was behind that, to know that I put in the hard work and here it is now in the public, public domain, and you can actually quantify it and be like, we've seen this much uptick, we've seen like them spend this much money to like solve this issue, to kind of see what the outcome is, I think is also hugely rewarding as well. And to kind of point to that and be like, I was behind that, and I helped make that happen.
Because a lot of people, in fact most people, complain.
Yeah.
Everyone's got this should be like this and that should be like that and but how many people are actually doing something about it? And this is a whole field that is actually doing something about it.
Yeah.
It might not necessarily always be a big issue, as I said, the little Coca-Cola tip, but there's a problem and we're doing something. We're actually trying to create solutions.
That's like sparked something in my mind, which is, again, like me being the little flag waver for like Tapestry, about what we're kind of doing like internally as well, just about kind of living at the, life at the moment. I mean, I wasn't here at the start of the pandemic, but they did a lot of work basically about how COVID was affecting people. I think they did a segmentation for the different types of people that are being affected, and kind of it helped kind of inform our other work about, what more could we be doing to help certain people. And we're in the process of doing something now. I'm on the project. It's something we've completely run off our own back with our own money, and it's all about the cost of living crisis. And we're basically going to be, talking to the British population. We're hopefully going to do it in the US as well, and basically understand who's going to be affected most, what's going to affect them, what changes are they going to have to make to their lives.
I like that.
Yeah,
and it makes sense actually. It's a smart thing to do, because client comes to you and says, "Is X, Y, Z possible?" I don't know. You have to go and do the research. So do it yourself proactively. It's clever. Yeah,
so we've kind of we'll have that base level insight of being like, we're seeing there's this type of consumer who's really cutting back. They just don't have the kind of money to kind of spend on kind of like extracurricular activities anymore. Do you know what I mean? They're typing this, like, this person needs this type of consumer needs this. And then once we've got those kind of segments like set in our mind and kind of like in the population, we can then kind of extrapolate that and put that onto kind of for our clients as well, and kind of be like, this is the kind of person that you're talking to, and we know that they're struggling basically, so you've kind of got to understand that, and there's a workaround here maybe, like in terms of how you help them, how you gain access to them, things like that. So that one's going to be really, really interesting as well.
I've spotted on quite a few projects now, there seems to be actually a rise in digital exclusion. And it's how we understand digital exclusion as well. Like someone could have Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff, and still be digitally excluded because they are sharing a laptop, or they don't have Wi-Fi in the house, or loads of different reasons. We always assume it's digital exclusion means someone in a cabin in the woods. That's not the case.
I suppose no one's doing that, are they? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So I always ask people for like examples, and you've already given one there, but do you have another example of like a really interesting project, or one that like was the highlight of your year, or something that was really, really interesting that you can tell me about?
I promise I'm not being like twee by saying all of them are really interesting, and like I'm really kind of like I said, there's so much variety, and kind of I think that's what's so, again, I keep coming back to why Tapestry is so great and why it's so different, but the way if we can go the extra mile with a project, we will. Do you know what I mean? When we say bespoke, we really, really mean it. We're never going to do just like a standard survey, send it out to people, put it in a PowerPoint, there you go, that's it. No, if there's something more we can do, my God, we'll do it. And we're lucky to have basically an absolutely fantastic data team. People, their minds work in ways that I wish I could understand as a person who's like, numbers maybe don't come most naturally to me. They just kind of, it's amazing what they can do. And I say this because basically the project that I'm thinking of, we had heavy involvement from them. And it was basically, I don't think I can name check them because we haven't kind of put it out in the public domain, but basically it started off as a project about, what is trust? What does trust mean?
Interesting.
And so we'd done a bit of qual around it, and our qual partner, Matt the Territory, who we work really closely with, basically came up with these kind of 4 building blocks of, what does trust actually mean? Because when you look at the kind of literature around trust, obviously it's something that's been written about in kind of like essays, books, all this kind of stuff, but it's very hard to kind of pinpoint what actually is trust, because I think there's one quote which I'm actually going to make a mess of now, but it's like, do you trust your like child's teacher? And the answer is to do what? Yeah, I trust them to teach the kid, but do I trust them to drive the school bus? No. So there's so much that kind of goes into it, and it's such a loaded term, and there's, like I said, multifaceted in like it means something different to everybody. Yeah. So we really wanted to kind of like deconstruct that, and we came up with these like 4 building blocks. So fame, like how well known is it, familiar, like how familiar are you with it, competent, how good is it at its job, and how risky do you think it is? And off the back of that, we've basically kind of constructed this metric that we're then going to kind of take out to brands, to anybody who wants it. It's basically going to be kind of like an NPS, like, net promoter score, to basically like how trusted is your brand. And it was basically interesting because we commissioned it off the back of kind of our client who deals with news brands, so newspapers basically, and it was all about how trusted are news brands as a source, because obviously that as a medium, as news reporting as an industry is changing so much at the moment with the rise of social media, things like TikTok, you've got TV news, you've got radio news, you're getting it from so many different places. It was like news brands, who did it first, how are they kind of still held, and how are they still seen in this market, and how trusted are they? And it was really interesting to kind of approach that project and kind of, like I said, create this whole new way of measuring trust and apply that. And it threw up some really, really interesting findings. And I mean, as part of that as well.
Like what? Can you?
I mean, it is that news brands are genuinely trusted, and that like the more kind of what I found really, really interesting, the more kind of overt that they are with their kind of like opinion, because obviously some papers are right leaning, some papers are left leaning. I feel like we know which ones are which, and the kind of the more overt you are with that, the more trustworthy, the less risky you're seen. Whereas social media, where you're like, I don't really know where I stand with you. If something's posted on Facebook, I don't really know what the agenda is behind this. How am I meant to take this? Your risk kind of goes way up. So that's
funny though. Sorry to interrupt.
No, of course,
funny because it's like, I can understand why social media news is going to be less trusted, because who is this person who's posting this?
What's their agenda?
But with like traditional outlets, if you're saying the more overt they are, the more leaning to one side or the other they are, the more trusted they are, I would have thought that anyone looking at it would say, well, they're just saying that because they're da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, maybe I could caveat it with talking among, maybe, was it among users? But I do get what you mean, that just like, they're only saying that because they kind of like stick in the mud, that's what they kind of like stand for. But it means you can kind of take what they're saying with a pinch of salt. Do you know what I mean? And so let's say I don't like a certain newspaper, if I see what they're writing, like the risk of kind of like the headline or, what the story is kind of saying goes down, because I was like, I know exactly where you're coming from, and does it align with me? No, it doesn't, so I'm going to go somewhere else. If it does align with me, the risk is low anyway.
When you do the multivariate, that's when it actually ends up more trustworthy. That's crazy.
It is crazy, and to kind of like dig into that, and it was this project that kind of like started off smaller than it was meant to. Sorry, and just kind of like expanding, because also as part of that we also looked at different types of news readers. Basically, we did a segmentation because like I said, me being nosy, loving to get to know people, like all the different types of person out there, and I love that you can kind of see that in your everyday life and be like, they're segment A, I know that they've got those traits, and like all that kind of stuff. So that's why I absolutely love a segmentation. But we basically kind of looked at all the different kind of news readers out there, and I think also what was interesting and tied to this whole trust kind of metric and new way of measuring it was that our most literate segment, like in terms of news literacy, and are they able to kind of like watch the news, read the news, and kind of be able to understand it, decode it, kind of recognise what's fake, what's new? Do they kind of know different newspapers like shorthand, things like that? Our most news literate segment are the ones that kind of, I think it makes sense, they trust the news brands that they use the most, basically. And it seems like they've gone through this process of where you're kind of, like you said, you're bombarded with news left, right and centre, and you go through this process of kind of distilling it down, understanding different news brands' kind of voices, and what aligns with yours, what you think, what's good reporting, what's bad reporting, kind of distill it down to this core kind of subset of news brands that you trust, and then you're in this cycle of like, you trust them, so you use them so you trust them, and there we go. And we kind of saw that as a way to, this is how you not fix news literacy, but this is how we can approach it. Because obviously fake news, you can't escape it. It's been like a term that's been around for the last 4 or 5 years, isn't it? And that's one of the industries, you know, around news reporting. How do we combat that? And I think what we found as part of this project is there's no straight, you know, clear answer, but it's like, it's a two-sided thing. Obviously, news brands as a whole have to do more, and it kind of comes back to this accessibility, you know, inclusion thing. They have to do more to reach, you know, harder to reach groups, basically those that have become disenfranchised with news reporting and stuff like that, to rebuild that trust, to rebuild that connection, and kind of be like, you're representing my voice, you're representing my views, you know, just starting at that point and kind of building that up. Then there also has to be a want on the behalf of the person, basically, to kind of go through that process of being like, I, you know, want to get the best news, I want to get the correct news, I want to get news that's factually correct, you know, that's correct and things like that, and having to go through that process of like engaging with the news as well. And it was just, like I said, what started as a small project just kind of snowballed, and it's just opened so many doors and so many different questions, like around everyday life, like I said, about trust, about news literacy, all this kind of stuff. And I think that's one that I've been working on closely for the last few months, and it's one that's kind of like kept me on my toes the whole way through. And yeah, like I said, for me talking about it for like, do you know what I mean? Me talking about it for the last like 10 minutes or whatever just kind of shows how passionate I am.
Which segment was the most distrusting?
So there's like, I think as always, there's like an unbothered segment, which I actually fell into, which made me feel really like, but it's not that you're not engaging with the news, but not to the same extent as other people in that, I don't know, it's quite intense nowadays, isn't it? That you'd rather switch off than do you know what I mean?
Sometimes I'm like it too. Sometimes I'll be watching and sometimes it's just too noisy. I've got too much going on.
And so you've got this unbothered segment. You've kind of got this passive segment who are happy to kind of like sit down, turn on the 10 o'clock news, and that's their news fix for the day. Whatever kind of is being told to them on TV, you know, they'll take it, they'll sit back. You know, they're not going to kind of like critically engage. Then we had our cynics who just kind of distrust the institution as a whole. They think that, you know, there is no kind of impartiality in news reporting anymore, that, you know, everyone's always got an agenda and things like that. But if you can kind of get them on board and kind of get them trusting your brand, they're loyal to the end kind of thing. But
in terms of like the segment, if you can tell me, like, what were the traits of that cynical group? Because you said the most trustworthy, they're like you know, really literate. You know, they understand how it works and can look at it critically. What were some of the traits of the? So
it's what you're kind of like, what you're looking to get out of the news. So what we found with like I said, our most news literate one is that they really want that breadth and depth of information. So they want to know everything, and they want to know, you know, deeply as well. They're not just going to kind of engage with the headlines and not read beyond it. Do you know what I mean? They want to get a point of view, and then they'll go somewhere else and corroborate that. Whereas, you know, our least trusting segments are the ones, and our least literate segments, are the ones that they're literally only skimming a headline, and it's literally just so they can, you know, enter a conversation with their friends, their family, and be like, oh, you know, I read about that. And like, that's all they can offer, and just be like, oh yeah, did you hear about this? And it's literally just a headline from it. And then they have no kind of desire to kind of like critically engage. It's all for show. And so, you know, that's a problem as well. It's like, how do you get them to kind of go beyond that and actually kind of engage with the facts of the story beyond, you know, just like a sound bite that they're like picking up?
I think that might be more a symptom of the times with like, you know, TikTok, Instagram, everything is like 30 seconds. Like
attention, do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. It's how do you tap it? And I mean, it is interesting you say that. That was our youngest segment. And so and our most news literate, our most trusting segment were our oldest segment. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. And it's like you said, is it a generational thing or is it a sign of the times? And, you know, that's things that we're kind of like questioning ourselves, that we're talking to the client about, and kind of like speculating, like, is there a way that we can get, you know, these younger news readers who are just kind of engaging at surface level, not really doing much more, kind of not really trusting about what they're reading, but they're reading loads and loads of stuff. You think about the number of sources they use, they've got the highest number of sources that they use, and they're here, there, they're everywhere. But like you said, not really critically engaging, not really giving it much thought. how do we get them to the end of the spectrum? Are they going to progress through that way, or have we not lost them, but as you know, social media kind of changed their whole kind of behaviours, and you know, just the way they think, the way they are as people, haven't grown up in that technology age.
It could possibly be the medium as well.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm sure a lot of that group will jump on Netflix and watch a 90-minute documentary.
Oh yeah, they'll binge like Stranger Things in one day.
You know what I mean? So the attention is there. It just has to be made interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that kind of comes back to our point about how do you reach these harder to reach segments, that it has to be kind of like a joint effort, that obviously the people have to be doing stuff themselves, there has to be a want, a desire, but also the industry itself needs to be doing more, and to kind of see that in cold hard numbers of like, look, you know, like we're talking socioeconomic groups, you know, those that are kind of C2DE, they're just technically not as news literate, or they're just kind of not engaging as much, they're more likely to be in kind of the unbothered segment, etc. How do we move them across? It was really interesting through.
Really sounds interesting. Sounds like an interesting. So I want to ask you, if there was one key thing about Tapestry that you want to shout about, what would it be?
I think it's that, like I said, it's a culture that's fostered from the top down, and Kevin Ian are kind of like, research is their life, they care so much about it that for them it's not about, you know, the price tag, not about the brand and all that kind of stuff, it's, you know, how can we help this person? So we will go above and beyond, and so if it's, you know, a company that maybe doesn't have the budget for, you know, let's say to do this, you know, 2,000, 3,000, these big kind of, we will adjust and we will do what we can to kind of, it sounds cliche, but to help the little man, if you know what I mean. Like, we are not picky with what we choose, but you know, we want to work with companies, we want to work with brands that kind of reflect our values as well. And so we, like I said, we do a lot of work with like charities and stuff. And I think what is so nice is to see kind of how, I don't know, I lost it. We can cut that one.
I think I'll try and like save it, because I think what you're saying is sorry, that, you know, a lot of clients really, they're looking at their clients. When I say clients, I'm talking about my clients, agencies, you know. They're looking at where is the biggest fish that I can reel in. You know, and hey, all power to them. I kind of do a similar thing too.
You have to, don't you? You've got a business to run.
Comes in, I've got business to run. I'm saying, okay, I want to get big projects. But it's not just about big projects. You know, if you've got 10, 15 projects on, and they're all £500,000, but they're on soap and toothpaste and, you know, boring stuff, then that's boring, right?
And I mean, it doesn't reflect your like ethos either, and I think that's what like runs it like in Tapestry Veins, is our kind of like ethos, our culture, is that I think we're good people, so to speak. So do you know what I mean? And so we want to work with, you know, companies, with brands, with charities and stuff that are making these changes, that are kind of like doing the good work, and so we'll make it happen, you know, through any means possible. Basically, we will flex like that, and like you said, it's not always about the price tag, it's not always about, oh, what is this company, what is this going to do to our margins, etc. It's like, no, what is this going to do for the kind of like bigger world, the bigger impact is it going to have, and how can we help them on that journey to kind of to succeed, basically. And I think that's what's so lovely and so refreshing. I
always look at those sort of projects like, okay, if we're not going to make a lot of money on it, what kind of case study is this going to make?
Exactly,
How, like, when I'm next having a conversation with a client and I'm bringing up this project, and like, oh, look, we did this, you know, what kind of conversation is that going to be?
Exactly.
That's more beneficial sometimes. You can use that to then go and reel in that big fish.
It's all experience, and it just kind of, it shows like you said, it shows the initiative that you're taking, and kind of like your breadth of expertise as well. Like, look, we learned this from this. Like, everything's got a part to play. Every project does. Like you said, you learn something new every time I do a new project, there's always something different. Like I said, it's always so bespoke what we do. I'm never doing the same thing like twice. And then so you like learn something from there, and you're just like, oh, I could pick that up and take that, and I can apply it here, and then we can add to that, and then that's going to be fantastic, and all that kind of stuff. So I think like every brand, every company that we work with has a role to play, and it's so nice to kind of get that just that kind of like level of diversity in terms of industries, in terms of companies as well, and you know, size, all that kind of stuff. Creed, I absolutely love it. It's so great.
Spice of life.
Exactly, that's what I was saying.
So you mentioned at the very, very beginning that, you know, you started off looking like I'm going to go into a big company, and now you've sort of the words you used was like gone down, but I don't think it's down. I think it's more just like picked something else that is actually more conducive, is that the word? To your values and what you want. What does the future look like to you in your mind's eye?
Let me get my crystal ball out. What is in the future?
Like, you know, where would you like to be, or what would you like to be doing?
I mean, for the moment, I want to keep doing what I'm doing and keep doing like the great work that we are, and kind of having these conversations, you know, like about, you know, the living crisis, things like that, you know, talking to all these interesting brands, companies, kind of keeping our finger on the pulse of like what's actually going on in the world. I don't know, there's always like, do you go client side? I don't know, there's that, but I don't know, that comes with its own challenges. I actually quite like being in an agency, and that every day is different.
You've had a lot of people go client side and then come back.
Because that's what you realise, isn't it? It sounds nice, it sounds glamorous, it sounds easy, because obviously we're at the other end of the thing, kind of like getting all the emails, just, oh my God, we've got to do all this. And you know, they're the one firing off emails, I'll go and do that. And then like you said, you get there. So I have done client side, and like you said, it's a completely different pace, and maybe I like the idea of it, but in reality, I like being kept on my toes, and this is what this job does for me. You know, you're doing something different all the time, you've got like loads of plates spinning. So I think I'd just like to keep doing that, and you know, kind of get some like managerial experience as well. I've got a person starting, so I haven't done any managing yet, so I'm really excited to kind of do that and hopefully not ruin ruin their career. But yeah, I've got someone starting in August, which will be really exciting, and kind of just seeing them and setting them up in the best way possible for their research journey, and like giving them kind of like that breadth of knowledge. I do think this is a great place to start, because we do kind of like end-to-end research. So we obviously kind of like do the proposals, we write the questionnaires, we script them in-house, we do the field work ourselves. Sometimes we kind of outsource it if it's like hard to reach groups or hard to reach countries, and then we do the report, and then so it's like full on end-to-end experience, and you do a bit of data stuff in there, like some real technical stuff that I'd never done before. So coming in as like a senior research exec with these research execs, you know, who are a few years below me, just like absolute whizzes on the computers. I was just like, oh my God, how did I do it? I felt like such an old person, like just like, is this right? How do you click refresh? One of those. So I'm really excited, you know, for, you know, people joining Tapestry, joining the industry and stuff, and kind of the variety of, you know, like we said, it's not just kind of like writing reports, it's not just ticking, kind of, there's so much to it, and I feel like you can find your niche, whether it is slightly more data, like that's what we're really good at. We've got some people who are kind of really flexible and fluid between the two, that, you know, they've kind of got their head for numbers, they've kind of got their head for this software that we use called Q, and that they can go into a bit more of that, like you've got the option to kind of pursue your passions, whereas I much prefer kind of like the later stuff where I'm writing. That's kind of like where I'm at my best, where I'm at my most creative. Other people are suited for other things as well, and I feel like I've gone off on a tangent, but I feel like people need to kind of get this idea of like that research is such like a rigid like thing, and that you can there's so much that there's something for everyone, and that you can play to your strengths, whether it is kind of like maybe you're like big picture thinker, that you're thinking about, you know, like I said at the end of the research question, what are the implications for that? Maybe you like the detail, the minutiae, you can be doing the survey, you can kind of be doing the research behind it, like, oh, we should ask this question this way, or have we even thought about asking them this? Like, that would be really interesting, because then there's this, like, you will find something for everyone, like whether you're like a methodical person, like the whole project management stuff of it all is very methodical, you've got to tick these things off, do all that. Yeah, I think there's something for everyone, but to bring it back, yeah, I'm looking forward to basically my new person starting, and giving them kind of like the best like foundation possible.
Being a mentor.
Even if they don't stay in research, you know, whatever it is, it's just giving them the kind of like you said, it's this experience in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lesson to learn. And I feel like all the jobs you go through, you take something, you learn more about yourself, and you learn more about what you like and what you don't like. So to kind of like help start guiding them on that process is just really, really exciting. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to, like in the most immediate future.
Would that be like, I often ask people like, what 3 pieces of advice would you give someone just starting out? I take it that's one of them. Is the fact that, you know, there's such variety that,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you can pick and choose.
Don't be afraid to explore, and if you find something you're interested, like follow it. Do you know what I mean? Like follow your heart, and like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can come back and you can figure something else out. I think there's one that people always say, isn't it? It's like, ask questions, don't be afraid. Like there is no such thing as a stupid question. I do genuinely believe that, and most people don't get annoyed if you ask questions. If anything, it kind of shows a keenness and like an eagerness to learn, and I think it's a great way to kind of get talking to people as well. And the third one, maybe just don't be too hard on yourself. I think it's easy to kind of like look around, whether it's at your like colleagues, your peers, etc., and compare and be like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're better at me than this, or they can do this quickly, or do you know what I mean? It's like, I think we're all in our own lane, just as long as you're getting something from this job, you're learning, whether it's, you know, whatever pace it is, as long as you're kind of like satisfied and you feel like you're kind of like moving forward a little bit, it doesn't, you know, it's your lane, you kind of like focus on you, and, you know, things will come. I'd say maybe those, I think. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's good advice.
Yeah.
But Amy, thank you so much for having me. This is really,
thank you for listening to me witter on.
No.
However long this has been.
No, you were great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.